morning, everyone, and welcome to the August 3rd, 2022 council meeting. It's 9:30, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. Members of the public are invited to participate in this meeting of council by accessing the meeting, which is live streamed on our Middlesex Centre YouTube channel, or by contacting the municipal clerk to receive a registration link to join the meeting being held electronically. Members of the public may also attend the meeting in person at the Cold Street Community Centre, located at 10227 Ilderton Road in Cold Street. There are no additions to the agenda this morning, so I'm going to look for disclosures of pecuniary interest. Councillor Shipley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll declare a conflict of interest on 7.2, and the clerk has the proper paperwork filled in.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We don't have any delegations, presentations, or petitions to note for this meeting, so we have the motion to adopt minutes before us. So that is that the minutes of the council meeting held on July 20th, 2022 be adopted as printed. Please and a seconder. Councillor Arts and Councillor Cates, thank you. Now we can move to the consent agenda. These are items that are listed and received as one motion. Council members may request that one or more items be removed for action. I'm going to get this table first. The motion before us is that consent items 6.1 through 6.9 be listed, that are listed on the August 3rd agenda be adopted as recommended. And could I have a mover, please? And a second. Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Shipley. Okay, so we have that table. Item number 6.7 is the Energy Conservation Demand Management Plan. And we have staff that speak to this. This is a report that we've seen for quite some time. So I'm going to see, there's Aubrey there. She can highlight some of the accomplishments and document some of the work that we've done and highlight some of the important points. There she is. Good morning, Aubrey. We can't hear you.
Is that better?
Oh, loud and clear. Thank you. If you'd like to give us the highlight and a update recap kind of thing, that would be appreciated.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and to the mayor, to the members of the council. In front of you is the ECDM plan for 2024 to 2019 to 2024, and also the 2020 report to the Ministry of Energy. Our municipality is making headway and in better position compared to other municipalities in the region. Part of the Government of Canada's target of net zero for 2050 is a 40 to 45% emission reduction by 2030. And if you can see in the report that in 2020, we are at 37.3. So if we keep doing what we're doing, we have no issue at all meeting the 2030 target of the Government of Canada and eventually being net zero by 2050. Sorry, I'm ready. If you have any questions, it's like I'm ready to answer.
Okay.
If you have any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. I'm going to look to council now. If you have questions, comments on any of the other items or clarifications that you want on this topic or any others. Deputy Mayor Brennan.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Just wondering, like, we're seeing reductions in everything because of what we're doing, and I go to the wellness center, and it's been at least 10 years since we put the solar panels on the roof of that building. How are they performing at this point? I know originally it was close to $250,000 a year or $200,000 a year we were getting financial out of those solar panels. Are they still performing to that rate, or are they starting to decline now? And what happens after approximately 20 years when they're not efficient anymore?
Through the mayor, I can answer that question, Aubrey. I can say that they're continuing to perform well. We are very consistent in the revenues that we're receiving through the FIT program. We have about 9 years left on that FIT agreement, where we're getting approximately 72 cents per kilowatt hour. That certainly will change in a 9 years time. So we will have to look at, how do we harness that energy? Do we go into another FIT contract at a much lower rate, or do we perhaps look at trying to harness that energy within the site? They are performing quite well. They are inspected annually by Northgrid. So, like all our other assets, they will have a shelf life of some kind. But I understand that they will, they'll last a long time, and we're continuing to get those assessments through Northgrid. So if there's any cracks or damage to any of the panels, we would replace, but they've been performing very well over the last 10 years.
Councillor Cates.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Scott or Aubrey. Does the capture that we get from the solar panels, is it reflected in these? Is that what's helping our numbers be good? Or are we even more additional on top of this in a different way?
For the mayor to Councillor Cates, definitely. If you can see, it's reflected in the GHG emission reduction that we've been receiving from the Ministry of Energy. As you can see, it's like we are at a 37.3% reduction since 2012.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I just have an additional question too. It's really great to see the savings that we have, the efficiencies that we're getting, and that rolls through to our users and ratepayers. I noticed that the 5-year average and 5-year total for natural gas, well, it goes up and down. It's not consistent. There are years when things are better and worse, but the trend is generally up there. And I'm wondering, is that just, quote, a cost of doing business, or are there ways that we can mitigate that, or do we have other choices that we might consider? Is there any kind of technology on the horizon? I just wondered if you had any comment on that column in particular.
To the mayor, with natural gas, it's because of the we're dependent on the for our heating. It's mostly for our heating use, and it's dependent on how much we need every year. However, once the infrastructure has changed to a cleaner source of energy, it's like that should definitely help with emission reduction.
Okay, thank you for that. Great report. Appreciate the update. Are there any other items?
Through the mayor, I just wanted to comment on item 6.9, the Thames Valley Long-Term Accommodation Report. I'm glad that they've done it, but so it's showing, for example, that Oxbow had 580, and 3 years ago they decided to cancel the holding zones, and because the thought was that the cohort that was in grade 5, 6 or something at the time would work itself through, and then they'd be down to wherever they're supposed to be, which of course did not happen. 80 kids graduated in June, and the proposed or the projected kids is supposed to be 578 for the following year, for next year. And then that's going to work up to 634. So there'll be 50 over at least. And according to the projections, with no extra portables and no thought for an extension to the school. And yet I noticed in Lucan, Wilberforce is getting an addition applied for, as well as another school, and Parkview is getting an addition. So it's just interesting to see how these things worked out. Thank you.
Does anyone want to comment?
Thanks. Through the council to Councillor Heffernan, agreed. I think what we would do is once the election takes place, we'd ask for our school board trustees to come and present and speak to this report, so we can and ask them what areas they see growth happening, so we can press them or have possible consideration to plan for the future based on the data that's in this report.
Thanks, Michael. And the other item with that is that the Medway is going to increase because Medway is already at, where did I see it? I can't find it. But anyway, 119. They're already at 119. And there's going to be another like 400 kids. So I know they're looking at a separate, like probably joining with the London or something. I don't know. But anyway, it's just an observation that for how many years has Medway been able to run itself? 70 or something. Anyway.
Sorry, Councillor Arts?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't know, this might be a question for Michael, but I've been told the school board, they're only allowed to do expansion based on current numbers. They're not allowed to build the school on projections. So that's part of the problem we face, correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Arts, partially correct. The other information, we do provide information as noted in the staff report. So when they do rely on population data from municipalities to help them with their calculations, which is more the reason to ask them to come forward, provide some justification when the time is right. Maybe perhaps next year we can do some relations with our school board trustees. How that shakes out, because we provided our population subset based on our official plan data that Watson's completed to the school board as they were putting this report together. So we've done our part to share so that they can plan accordingly. I think it's important that we can then create that dialogue and open on these.
Okay, other items?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't know if this is the spot to bring it up, but it made me think of it when I was reading all of this on the drinking water. Somebody asked me when we had the big power outage recently, like, what if the water tower runs out of water? Do things run on electricity? Is there pumps somewhere not pumping? So it just made me wonder about that. I'm assuming we have like backup generators, gas powered, so it's all good.
Through the chair to Councillor Bates, it is all good. Rob can attest that we do have backups to our water system. But I'll let Rob respond.
Yep. Good morning. So I think I caught most of what Councillor Cates' question was. So through Madam Mayor to Councillor Cates, yes, we do have backup generators at the facilities, and they're checked regularly to make sure that they run and they're fueled. The water towers are also set to have. I mean, that they're not only do they help provide pressure to the system, but they provide storage, right? In the event of an outage, that we do have that storage available. I'm not sure if you have more specific questions or not, but I see Eric's jumped on as well too, that can help answer questions.
No, I'm good. I just wanted to know in my mind that we had the backup, which I assumed was happening, but it just gives me clearer to be able to answer questions, because it was, we're gonna run out of water in the water tower and then what's gonna happen. And so I said, no, I'm pretty sure we're all good, but now I've asked, so thank you.
Is there anything else? Oh, yes, an additional item. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Councillor
I have
Cates.
another item, thank you. For the line fences for James's, I just wanted to clarify, because I read along and I got it and then I didn't get it. And so just to clarify, the way I see it is the line fences are rural, not like in your neighborhood backyard fence along the way. And this is more that we don't follow their policy.
Through the chair, thank you for that question. You are quite correct, Councillor Cates, that the Line Fences Act deals with boundary fences in the rural area. So typically, these are fences that are found on agricultural properties. They're usually quite significant in length, and they're generally used to keep livestock from crossing over from one boundary property to another. So the Line Fences Act and the legislation is specific in that it does not deal with residential fences or privacy fences that you might find in an urban area. So as it stands today, the Line Fences Act does not cover that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the consent items? Okay, the motion has been tabled. I'll call the vote then. All in favor or any opposed, pardon me. Seeing none, then that is carried. And moving on to item number 7, staff reports. The first item up is from our Director of Corporate Services. Tiffany is going to give us the Budget 101 presentation. Floor is yours, Tiffany.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so through you, Mayor DeVitt, good morning, everyone. This morning, I'll be presenting an introduction to the municipal budgeting for Middlesex Center. And I'm going to run through the presentation just high level to kind of give an overview of what municipal budgeting is. We like to present this to council, especially in an election year. So for any of the candidates that are watching today, they get a good understanding of the municipal budgeting process as they might be joining us later on this year. And so I will get started. At this point, I'll take questions at the end of the presentation, as long as that's okay. If you do need to have an urgent question, need to interrupt me, just let me know, or maybe just speak and I can answer the question. So overall, with the municipal budget, what we're looking at is what is a budget? So simply put, it is a financial plan. It sets out our planned expenditures and the means of financing those. It's a statement of priorities. It establishes our spending limits on programs and services, and it's a basis for our financial decision making. It is a political document, so it's more of a governance document if you're looking at it that way. Council is the ultimate authority when it comes to a municipal budget. Here at Middlesex Center, we only approve a 1-year operating budget, and this year we will be looking at a 5-year capital budget. Each year we do present to council the 5-year capital budget. We will be looking at more of a commitment to these plans as we continue into the next 5 years. It is a management document as well. So when you're looking at our budget, and if you're wondering how it's created, well, you can take a look at a lot of the plans that the municipality puts in place. These are operational plans. These are living documents that we like to work with. Things like our strategic plan and our operational plans by department, our asset management plan, a long-term financial plan, our development charges study, and all the master plans that each department has. And then we take all of this information and we put it into our budget and we create a budget booklet for the community. And it serves as a communication tool to inform and engage the residents of our community. So if you're looking at it, if you're more of a visual learner, this kind of lays out what the process will look like to create the budget. The process itself starts early in the year. We did launch our budget and the roadmap in June of 2022. And it has already begun with all the directors and department leads working on their budgets behind the scenes to get everything ready for this fall. One of the things to note at this point is that we do not have any members of council that are on our budget committee for this year for the 2023 budget. However, as of August 19th, we will know, as the clerk will let us know, if there's any members of council that are acclaimed for next year, and then a report will come to council to recommend having 1 or 2, if possible, join us for the budget committee for the 2023 budget planning process. So why do we budget? So first of all, for a municipality, it is a legal requirement. So under Section 291 of the Municipal Act, council must adopt a budget every year. And the budget shall be prepared during the year or immediately preceding year. So this year, 2022, we will prepare the 2023 budget. And unlike our provincial and federal governments, the municipality has to present a balanced budget. So what does that mean essentially? That all of the estimated expenditures has to equal our estimated revenues. And so the municipality has some tools in place in order to make sure that we are balancing the budget every year. And I'll get into that a little bit later in the presentation. So we call it the 3 A's of budgeting. So there's accountability, allocation, and administration. And this will bring us through the entire budget process for 2023. So with budgeting, which you would experience in your own personal lives when you're budgeting for your own financial well-being, we do have a challenge. So we need to balance the needs of all of our customers, so our residents and those within the community, in a fiscally responsible way. The needs do vary from resident to resident. So everybody's needs are a little bit different. And so we need to find a balancing act with that. And there can be misperceptions about which services are under the control of our local government. So the municipal government, we oversee many things, but we don't oversee everything. And we will work at controlling those costs that we do control. So what do we provide? So if you're looking at this picture, it gives you a little bit of an idea. We do have a contract service with the OPP, so they provide the policing services. We have our fire services team. We have parks and recreation. So those are your trails and your playgrounds and the arenas and the community centers that you like to enjoy. As well, we have roads within the municipality, and they do the snow clearing as well. One of the things to remind the community about when it comes to our transportation team is that they don't cover all of the roads. There are different roads within the municipality. Some are controlled by the county and some are controlled by the local, our municipal government with us. And so there is a little bit of a difference. We also do the garbage pickup. This is a contracted services. And here at Middlesex Center, we maintain our own water and wastewater services. And earlier in the consent agenda, there was a report with respect to the water. What we don't provide. So these are some of the things that we do get questions on quite consistently, and we try to provide as much information as possible. But education, that is the province and the school boards. Although the municipality does collect the taxes that provides, that goes to those school boards, we have no control over this. This is done through the province. Healthcare, once again, is through the province. Highways is through the province. Our libraries are through our County of Middlesex here. Our long-term care homes, County of Middlesex. Ambulance, County of Middlesex. And the provincial parks is once again with the province. And so if you do have questions, our customer service associates are more than happy to help you out as much as they can and try to point you in the right direction. So when it talks about the other services that are provided in the community, it goes with your property tax collection. So when you're looking at Middlesex Center and you're staring at your property tax bill, which will be out in the mail this week, you're going to see that it's actually broken down into three categories. One would be the municipality, and that's us. Those are the local services I mentioned earlier. Then there's the County of Middlesex, and that's about 34%. And then there's the school boards, and that's 13%. So that's your education portion. If you look at the top of your property tax bill, you'll see the allocation there and where it's going. So as I mentioned earlier, our budget process starts early in the year, and we must present a balanced budget. We can incur debt to pay for large capital acquisitions, and any debt that we will be acquiring is approved through council. We do have two that were identified for 2022, and we'll probably carry forward into 2023 when we actually do the debt borrowing. We cannot incur a deficit to fund day-to-day operations. And one of the biggest things when you're looking at a balanced budget is if we had a deficit in the year before, we have to ensure that that's included in our budget for the next year. We make sure that is covered. Here at Middlesex Center, we use our tax rate stabilization reserve fund to ensure that we don't run into any of those issues. Now, when we're talking about the budget development, we also talk about our priorities. If you really want to get a good understanding of the municipal priorities, check out our strategic plan on our website. It's a great document and it's guiding us through the next few years. It was passed by council a couple years ago and it has been used, and the goals that we've been achieving has been incredible for our community. There are a lot of cost drivers that are impacting our budget, as you can see here, and I won't get into specific detail, but if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself, anyone here at the municipality, or look at our budget booklet, as a lot of information is included in there. So there is the 4 stages of the budget process. Right now we're in stage 1, the preparation, planning, and priority setting. Then it goes to stage 2 with adoption. And so this is when council adopts our budget. We're looking at this for late fall, early winter, 2022, 2023. The goal is December, but it will depend on our council. Implementation and raising and spending and managing funds, that happens early 2023. And review, that happens all throughout 2023. So for the 2022 budget, that's the stage we're in right now. So there's an operating versus a capital budget. So the operating budget is normal operating expenditures and revenues associated with day-to-day provisions, and capital budget is significant expenditures to acquire, construct, or improve land, buildings, engineering, structures, and machinery and equipment. They are planned to be used beyond 1 year. When you check out our budget booklet online, you'll see that we do separate the operating from the capital budget and provide a little bit more information on each of those. So we work with all the departments to work on their department business plans. This always ties to our strategic plan, as well as any of the other master plans or the different studies, such as the asset management plan. Asset management plan is very integrated with our capital plan for the next 5 years, as you'll see when we present the 2023 budget. Of course, just like you have at home, we have non-discretionary cost increase. We have to take a look at this for the municipality. Just like you, we have the consumer price index. And because we have a lot of capital construction projects, we have the construction price index. In 2022, these have increased significantly. We will be monitoring this for the estimated increases for 2023. And please stay tuned as we're all kind of looking at what the economy is going to be doing over the next few months. This just outlines how everything does tie together and the use of reserve and reserve funds in building our operating and capital budgets. So in the capital budget, these are some of the larger items that you'll see, and we like to present a quarterly capital budget to actual to council so that you can see where we're progressing on these. Additionally, on our website, if you want to check it out, we have a capital web page on all of our projects with some pictures and timelines. And especially when you're looking at construction in the summer, you want to know which roads to avoid. So please take a look at our website because it can help you out. And like the operating, the capital budget is also a balancing act. There's only so many funds available, and there's a lot of things that we need to look at with our project needs. For any of the directors looking at getting any capital for the next 5 years, there is an entire process that they have to go through, and the information is laid out there. So when council is seeing this information, it's not coming as a surprise, and there's always a reason to it and a supporting case. And then for capital projects, we do have a little bit more revenue sources. As mentioned earlier, we can get debt for capital projects. We do have development charges, donations and grants, and reserves and reserve funds. No sources of funding for the budget. The number one source is our property taxes. And then there's some grants from the federal and provincial government. We have user fees, revenue from services such as recreation, planning applications, and building permits. We have other user fees related to utilities, so water, wastewater, and stormwater rates. So these are funded directly by our users. For capital specifically, we transfer municipal reserve funds and debt financing. And there are some other miscellaneous revenues that help us make up that total funding amount. Operating expenditures, this is just a snapshot of our top 75% of the operating expenditures. And when you're looking at transfer to reserves and reserve funds, that's the amount of our budget that we raise every year that we transfer directly into our reserve and reserve funds for capital spending and some operating spending in the future. So it makes so that we're aligned with our asset management plan. And now talking about the tax levy. In order to figure out what we need to raise on taxes, so that's your property tax bill, we take our expenditures less the non-property tax revenues equals what we have to raise. And that's how we budget here at Middlesex Center. We like to look at what everything's coming in at, how much revenue we have, how much expenses, and what we have to raise. And then we bring that information to council, and council makes that decision of what we actually will raise on taxes. And if there's a shortfall, that's where the municipality has the advantage of looking at our reserve funds in order to fund that, to make sure that we're not having drastic increases from year to year or decreases. We like to kind of level that out for our residents. And how it's calculated, we take your current value assessment times your tax rate equals your tax payable. More information can be found on our website with respect to this, but this essentially is just the calculation. As mentioned earlier, if we have a year-end deficit or surplus, what happens? And then finally, the role of our budget team. So the budget team is a very large team. There's many members from finance, communication, and all the directors and departments have representatives on this. We will walk through the entire budget and every account with our budget committee. We make the decisions ahead of time to provide council with the best recommendation that we have, and then they get to make the final decision on where we're sitting with the budget every year. Another item is we create a user-friendly document that outlines the budget that everyone can understand. This year, the municipality was successful in getting the Distinguished Budget Award through GFOA, which was presented in council a few meetings ago. This outlines that our budget document is accountable and transparent and easy to understand for our community. And this is something that we're going to strive for every year. So please check out our website and look at the budget booklet for 2022. And we will have the 2023 budget booklet underway shortly. One of the things I wanted to put out to the community in this presentation is right now we have the budget survey that is open until August 8th. If you have not had a chance to fill out the budget survey, please do. It can be found on our website. It should take less than 10 minutes, and it gives you an opportunity to give us your input on the budget. There's some just questions where you would check off some boxes on what you think is working and what isn't working, but there's some open-ended questions. And so you get a chance to actually put in a lot of information of what you feel is something that's a challenge for the municipality or something you want to see in the budget. So if you can please take some time and go to the budget survey, that would be great. If you have any comments on the budget booklet, I would love to hear from you. So my information is at the end of this presentation, and please reach out as we're building the 2023 budget booklet this fall. And we want to ensure that if there's something that you want to see from our municipality, let us know so we can include it. The point of the budget booklet is to provide that information to the community so they understand the budget and they see what those priorities are and where we're spending the money and why we're spending it, and all those great projects coming to all of your within the whole community. And there is a specific role for the treasurer, which would be myself, the director of corporate services, that we make sure that we hit every year within the budget, and those are outlined here. So this is my final information. One of the last things I'd like to mention is this year we do have an exciting new initiative with the budget. Along with the budget booklet that's usually published once the budget is approved, we do have a new program called Openbook that's going to be coming to you this fall. So what Openbook is, it'll give you real-time data on the budget being built. It'll have actuals and budget data that is, once again, in real time, that's updated. It'll have all this information on our capital projects. And so you can actually scroll in on a map and see exactly where it's going to be with some pictures that can really help visualize the whole experience. So stay tuned. That is an improvement Middlesex Center is looking at doing, and we're excited to present. So at this point, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And if council has any questions, please feel free.
Thank you for that presentation, Tiffany. I'll look to council for comments. Councilor Cates, Councilor Heffernan. Go ahead, start.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Tiffany. Very good presentation. I just have a side question. Have you heard anything at all about when Impact plans to start doing some new assessments?
So through you, Mayor DeVete. So we haven't heard of when they're actually going to do it, but we do know for 2023 it has been put off again. So they did announce last year, so nothing for 2022. Nothing for 2023, which is the budget year we're going into. So all we will see in our budget for property taxes, that increase will just be growth related, which this municipality does have. So we are fortunate there. And anything that's tax rate increase, which is council's decision. We are hopeful that it does happen in 2024, but it is a challenge that we are working through here at Middlesex Center as well as all municipalities. And we will keep council and the public apprised as soon as we have information.
Thank you.
To the mayor, to Tiffany, grants and bursaries are included in the income, or grants from federal and provincial government. Now, how does that work? Like, do you, for example, if it's a park and we're going to do playground, do we put that in the budget and then apply for the grants? So then the grant is sort of extra?
So through you, Mayor DeVete. So no, if we don't have it actually secured, we don't put it into the budget. So the only ones that we actually budget for would be OMPF, the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, which is an annual amount. Although usually it comes out late fall, we do an estimate in the budget as we begin the process, and then we refine that once we get the information. That would be the same as OCIF, which is the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. So the provincial government has assured us that that's going to happen for the next few years at least. And the federal, which is now the Canada Community Benefit Fund, which was formerly federal gas tax. Once again, we're in agreement with AMO, so we know that we have that. We had it secured for 5 years. I think this might be the last 2023 or 2024 might be the last year of that 5-year cycle, but at least we have that secured. So those we will budget for. And if we get any news from the government saying that we were successful, we'll obviously budget for that. But if not, say if it's a specific park, we budget that coming from the Buildings and Facilities Reserve Fund, say for $100,000. But then if we get the grant, we reimburse the reserve fund. So yeah, so we only will budget if we are absolutely certain that we're going to get it.
Okay, thanks.
Any questions? I don't see any. Again, thank you for that. I think the efforts in communicating about the process and the education that's happening, the opportunities for residents to provide input and attend things and complete surveys. This is definitely adding to our transparency and accountability. So I really appreciate all the effort that you and senior team and as well the people who are helping, giving you input it's all a team effort. So I really appreciate all of the work that you're doing. Thank you. If there are no other comments, then we have a motion before us that reports CPS 34, 2022 regarding budget 101 presentation be received for information. Could I have a mover, please? And a seconder. Councillor Scott and Deputy Mayor Brennan. Any opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Item 2 is an application for zoning bylaw amendment. We're looking for Marion Cabral, our planner, to provide an overview of the staff. There you are. The floor is yours, Marion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to council. I'll just quickly share my screen with everyone. Okay, so the purpose of this report is to provide information and a recommendation to council regarding the requested rezoning application at 21678 Richmond Street. The applicant is requesting to rezone the property from existing use to agricultural or the A1 zone. So the current existing use zone does not permit any new buildings on the property, any new buildings on the property, and the agricultural zone would permit normal farm practices as well as a single family dwelling. This land is located on the east side of Richmond Street or Highway 4, and it's located just north of the community of Arva. So as you can see on the location map, it is a little bit difficult to read with all the layers turned on, but the property actually extends further back. So it is partly zoned existing use, as we see here, it's highlighted, open space, which is primarily over the Medway Creek, as well as restricted agriculture or the A2 zone, which is applicable to the rest of the property. So this rezoning application would only affect the land that is currently zoned as existing use. In total, the land is approximately 61 acres in area. It did contain 2 single dwellings, which were located closer to Richmond Street on the southern portion of this property. However, those dwellings were removed earlier this year. As well as you can see from the map, there's a significant amount of woodland as well as hazard lands and the regulated area, that most of the area where the Medway Creek is located. So the applicant proposes to build a single family dwelling near the rear of the property. So you can kind of see it in this clearing towards the back of the parcel. This would be located outside of the regulated area, any of the hazard lands or the significant woodland area. The applicant has been in contact and in discussion with the Conservation Authority, in this case UTRCA, to identify the appropriate location for the proposed dwelling. However, there is some needs to be done by the applicant, including a development assessment report and a slope stability study before any development can be approved on this land. Notice of the application was circulated in conformity with the Planning Act. At the time of writing the report, I did not receive any comments from the public. However, we did receive one letter from a member of the public. This is a resident that currently resides in the community of Arva and notes that the subject property contains an abundance of rare trees, contains hazard lands and floodplain. And of course, it is a habitat for wildlife within the area, and that extends over the in the creek area into Arva. So this area just raises concern that the tree coverage would be at risk if development is permitted on the site. And as mentioned, the applicant has been working with UTRCA to determine a suitable site or a building envelope where a single family home could be located, which is outside of the significant woodland or other natural heritage features. These studies would need to be completed and provided to the UTRCA. However, the UTRCA is satisfied that the residential dwelling is not proposed in the same location as those previous dwellings, which were entirely located within the floodplain and the hazard area. So staff did review the application to rezone the lands from existing use to the agricultural zone, and find it generally consistent with the county and local official plan for the agricultural area policies. However, it is acknowledged that the applicant is seeking to develop one single family dwelling on the property and may not undertake any agricultural activities. Staff cannot consider this proposal for constructing a single family home as a farmhouse or a farm related dwelling, and which is generally permitted within the local and the county official plans. However, the house does represent the replacement of two dwellings into one home and improving the location of those residential uses that had occurred on the property. Further, staff did consider the impacts of constructing a single family home on this property in relation to all the surrounding agricultural areas, since the majority of the properties are to the north and to the west agricultural. Since there is a majority of the lands to the east and to the west zoned for restricted agriculture, and there are a significant amount of rural residential properties, the additional dwelling would have minimal impact on the surrounding agricultural uses. So staff is satisfied that the one single family home can be supported on the site and that the agricultural zone or the A1 zone would be the most appropriate zone for the land. The zone would also permit the conservation forestry uses of the lands as well to recognize that significant woodland. As such, planning staff have determined that the requested zoning bylaw amendment is consistent with the PPS and county and local official plans and recommend approval of the zoning bylaw amendment. And this opinion was provided in consideration of that we had received at the time of writing the report, and should council receive any new information that should be considered prior to making a decision. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. I'll note that at this time that both Mr. Andrew Hens, who is the applicant, as well as Mr. Todd Warner, the property owner, are in attendance. If you wish to speak to the application, you have the opportunity now if you'd like. If not, I know you're able to comment or answer questions from the council.
Good morning, thank you. Andrew Hens here. I really have nothing further to add at this time. Mr. Warner and I are happy to answer any questions, but we thank Ms. Kerbal for the very thorough report and find that gives an accurate summary of the application and the intention for the use of the property.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Hens. I'll look to councillors. Any questions? I'll start with Deputy Mayor Brennan.
To you, Madam Mayor, to Miriam. Miriam, I see there's a helicopter pad proposed in this area. Does it have to have a separate zoning, or is there any impact on the village with having a helicopter taking off and landing that close to the village?
Through Madam Mayor to Deputy Mayor Brennan. So I did actually look into this, not for this site or proposal specifically, but for another one within a settlement area. Currently, there is no specific zone for a helicopter pad or helicopter landing. And in terms of the federal requirements for aviation and for helicopters, there's no real setback requirements either that that are needed for distance from residential properties or any other type of sensitive land uses. So as far as I'm aware, that there is no specific zone or setback requirements for a helicopter pad.
Okay, Councillor Cates.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I guess part of my question was, so when you look at the location map in the very southern corner, that's where the two houses were. I'm assuming it's zoned fine that could be built there. And I understand they want to build back on that other clear part. So what my question was, I guess, was about the driveway. I see in the other drawing that it shows the curvy driveway back to the house, etc. So I just wondered, is some of that already existing, or is that going to be all the clear path cut through the woodland? Protected, that's protected woodland, right? Significant woodland.
So I think maybe Todd or Andrew that question.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. So it does respect the existing access that was provided to the prior residential dwellings that have since been demolished pursuant to a permit. So Mr. Warner is reliant upon the existing access to the property to the county road that's provided. But I'll ask him, just with the knowledge of the site, just to comment on, the other clearance and other construction of the lane, presumably kind of the back half of the lane that's going to be necessary prior to his construction. Todd, anything further to add? And just if you want to unmute yourself too, Todd, there should be a button at the, yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I first started working with Upper Thames back in July 2019, and through discussions we had starting in early 2020, the problem with the two existing homes where they were located, it was in the restricted area of the Conservation Authority in the floodplain. So part of the requirements they requested from me was to do the appropriate ESA phase 1 and phase 2 for that area, and then have those homes removed in accordance with all respect to the pond and all the proper testing done, which was done, and all that information was submitted to Upper Thames. So to answer the first question, we could not build again on that site because that site is restricted because of the location and proximity to the pond. Through the meetings, Upper Thames came back and said really the only area that we could build would be back in that open clearing area, which is outside of the floodplain, outside of the restricted area, etc. The forest or the pine tree plantation that is there, we need to get back to that location. And I've assured Upper Thames that any trees that are removed will be replaced one for one on the property with native trees. The other thing with the agricultural zoning, that pine tree plantation was planted back, I think, in the early 60s when they were extending Highway 4 going north, and was accessed back in the back corner for gravel, etc. And then once the highway was done, the restoration project was planting the pine trees. So they're reaching their 40+ year life here. And so the other advantage of having the agriculture, it allows me to be able to reforest that area with trees. So that I can assure council that there's absolutely no clear cutting at all being involved here. The only farming that will be done will be to replace and the reforestation of that area done over time, not all at once, so that there's not a huge impact where suddenly the trees disappear one day. This will be done over a period of years. As we take up some trees for the driveway, we'll replace those trees. As we look at trees that are dead, I have hired an arborist, CLC Tree Services, who we're working with, and also a landscape architect, Art Lehman, and working with a couple different civil engineering groups, MTE and EXP, to make sure that anything we're doing is in accordance with all the applicable zoning and requirements of the Conservation Authority.
Yep, that's good. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Arts.
Through you, Madam Mayor, this is just more probably general than whatever. Here she goes. It's my understanding it's 61.3 acres. This house is going to be built. I've got no issues with that. It's going to stay with this acreage. There's never going to be an application to sever anything other than what's going on now. So I'm good with that. And as far as, I know it's a wildlife area and all that, but I realize the Conservation Authority is going to probably require you to do a development assessment report. So if they're good with whatever you want to build, I find they're the knowledgeable one on this one. So I'm good with that too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? I don't see any hands. We have a motion before us that zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 06-2022 filed by Andrew Pence on behalf of Todd and Stephanie Warner to rezone the lands from existing use in U to agricultural A1 zone for the land municipally, as 21678 Richmond Street, Municipality of Middlesex Center, be approved. Do I have a mover, please, and a second? Councillor Cates and Councillor Arts. Is anyone opposed? And I don't see hands. That is carried. Thank you. Thank you for attending, gentlemen, and making your clarifications. And we can now move to the application for I-73, which is an application for draft plan of condominium. And again, we have Marion here to present the report.
Great, thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to council. Hopefully everyone can see the location map up on your screen. So this proposal this report is provide council with a recommendation on the draft plan of condominium proposal located at 24409 in Poplar Hill Road in Poplar Hill. The application was before council in February of 2022 for a public meeting. However, I will just go briefly over the proposal just to refresh everyone's memories. So the land is approximately 0.59 acres in area and located on the west corner of Poplar Hill Road and Ilderton Road. The lands do have an existing 4-unit townhouse development. So the applicant is applying for the draft plan of condominium to convert the existing townhouse dwelling units from a tenant or a lease-based situation to a standard condominium, and the units would be for sale. The proposed common elements include the driveway access, perimeter fencing, and shared walls. However, the applicant has identified exclusive use areas, which include the driveways leading up to the house, the porches, decks, individual septic systems, and contingency areas. And these areas would be the responsibility of each unit owner. So the condominium conversion represents a change in the ownership of the lands and the units. However, it does not change the permitted uses on the site, nor is any new development being proposed. Of course, there is an existing site plan agreement that is registered to the lands, and that would remain in place. So the provincial policy, including the Condominium Act, the Planning Act, as well as the Residential Tenancy Act, provide and speak to the conversion of the rental units into condominium, and identifies the protection of the rights for tenants as well. The conversion is a common practice in Ontario, especially where there is existing residential or even non-residential buildings that could be subdivided in ownership. And provide some common areas for the unit owners. So staff have been given the opportunity to review the development proposal and generally provided comments that are reflected through the draft plan conditions. And the conditions are fairly brief since development already exists on the site. However, it does address some matters, including the condominium declaration and the roles and responsibilities of the unit owners, as well as the condominium corporation, as well as just finalizing the draft plan condominium before final approval. So since the public meeting, staff have not received any new comments from the public. The recommendation is consistent with provincial policy statement, any provincial legislation, and the county and local official plans. As such, it is appropriate that Middlesex Centre recommend draft plan approval to the county and subject to the attached draft plan conditions with a 3-year lapse period. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you for that presentation. Mr. Kerry Thody is in attendance from C and L Group to comment on the application, as is Elizabeth Cormier, also available to answer questions. I'm wondering, does either person want to present anything or add to the presentation for the plan? Good morning, Elizabeth. Is there anything you'd like to add? It's your turn to comment if you wish.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity. We're satisfied with the recommendation of the planner and of staff. And we'd like to thank Ms. Krabel for her assistance. And should council have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Otherwise, we're satisfied and look forward to this matter going ahead.
Thank you. I'll look to council. Are there any questions from anyone? Councillor Arts.
I've got a question on the condominium agreement, common elements. There's shared water wells. I think currently there's 2 wells and there's 2 units off of one well and 2 units off the other well. So if something goes wrong, I want to make for sure in your condominium agreement that either you look after, there's no question of, oh, that's not my well, it's the other side. I just want clarification on maintenance if something's to go wrong with the wells. And this is just, the next thing is an observation. I know with condominium agreements, when you start with the original owners, it's going to be good because they're all getting along, but properties get sold, new owners come along. I would really recommend that the current owners set it up so that you take a governance training session or something so that you know the rules, keep your minute book up to date, you build up reserves for future maintenance, because a lot of times time goes on and things aren't done right. You're actually doing things wrong that you think is right. So that's just observation. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there any other question? Council?
Just to jump in and say that what Councillor Arts, there's a whole portion of the condominium agreement and status report, et cetera, that happens at the time of the sale. All those rules and stuff when the purchase happens through their lawyer.
I don't see, oh, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Arts.
I realize that, Sue, but people forget to read it, or they don't understand what they read, or they don't do what they're supposed to. I guess I was trying to go the next step and actually understand what they're doing, but
sadly, we can't control that.
I know.
As we well know.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we do have a motion before us that the County of Middlesex be advised that Middlesex Centre recommends draft plan, oopsie, oh yeah, that's right, plan for the land known legally as concession 9, part lot 4, in the municipality of Middlesex Centre, county file number 39T, MC CDM 2020-01, subject to the draft plan conditions appended to Middlesex Centre report PLA 53-2022, and subject to a 3-year lapse period. Could I have a mover, please, and a second? Councillor Shipley and Councillor Cates. Is anyone opposed? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Cormier. And we'll now move to the Master Servicing Plan Consultant Award. And we have Mr. Cascaden, the Director of Public Works Engineering, here to give us a staff report. Where's yours?
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor and members of Council. So this is a staff report looking at the Consultant Award for the Master Servicing Plan. This comes on the heels of other recent plans, such as the official plan review, our asset management plan, and development charges study update, including the recent award of the Transportation Master Plan. So through this report, staff are seeking Council approval for a consultant award of the Master Servicing Plan as a single source award, as opposed to going through the RFP process for this. So a Master Servicing Plan will complement the Transportation Master Plan and will build on this previous studies I've mentioned. Staff are recommending that the two master plans, the transportation and the servicing components, proceed as two separate master plans, as I had indicated in the recent staff report for the Transportation Master Plan. We felt this was the most time efficient and cost efficient way of moving these two forward. The Master Servicing Plan is a larger undertaking. Both will take considerable time, but they will run in parallel. So the Master Servicing Plan is going to provide recommendations for the expansion of the municipal services that's compatible with the growth plans of Middlesex Centre, and it will coordinate with the recent official plan review. The Master Servicing Plan will both look at initial capital costs, feasibility, operational costs, and look at the social and environmental impacts of the expansion of the servicing. So the previous Master Servicing Plan was completed by Stantec in 2010, but that's exceeded the 10-year validity period for that master plan. So we will be looking at starting this as quickly as possible in 2022, with the intent to wrap up in about mid-2023. This comes as a result of the significant growth the municipality is seeing and the development pressures. We know that there needs to be a long-term plan for the growth of our infrastructure to support ongoing development and the needs of our municipality. So as part of that, we've recently completed the official plan review, which proposes expansions or modifications of the settlement areas to facilitate new development. And so we need to conduct this master servicing plan in support of that, and to look and see if there's a shift required where infrastructure is planned, or if it's still will follow a similar pattern as what was described in the original or in the previous 2010 report. So this next master servicing plan, it's really going to focus on the water and wastewater components. It will be made up of 4 components. The previous one was 5 because it included transportation. But this current one will have 4. So it'll have water, stormwater, sanitary, as well as solid waste and recycling. So that last one is a smaller component, certainly because we have a contract with BRA that looks at that. But we'll still look at how that's managed and look at the existing Enviro Depots facilities. The stormwater will build upon the fairly recent community stormwater and Delaware stormwater master plans that were completed, and look at areas that maybe were not included within those reports. And the real focus is going to be on the water and sanitary expansion and whether upgrades are required to the facilities as well as expansion of the distribution and collection systems for those systems. So the general approach to developing a master servicing plan, they can either follow approach 1 or approach 2. Approach 2 is more detailed than approach 1. The previous master servicing plan followed approach 1. The intent with this one is that it will follow the approach 2, which will look to provide sufficient level of assessment to fulfill the phase 2 process, which means that under the municipal class EA process, that it'll effectively meet the process requirements for Schedule B for any projects that would end up being Schedule B. So that would limit the need to go back and do individual EAs for any infrastructure upgrades that come out or that are recommended as a result of this. Larger projects such as, say, a significant expansion of the Kamoka wastewater plant would still require a Schedule C EA after this. However, even if that is the case, using the approach 2 in this master servicing plan, the intent is that it will help expedite the municipality's procession into the phase 3 and phase 4 to complete that Class C EA if required. Within the budget, we've also allotted a contingency amount, or sorry, an allowance for some field work, so that as we work through this, if we feel that there's benefits to having the field work completed as part of the EA, as opposed to waiting till we get into further detailed design, that we can start the field work earlier to help expedite some of those projects that will come out as recommendations of the master servicing plan. So there's a whole list within that staff report of items that will be covered within the master servicing plan, items that will be looked at. But really, you'll be looking at growth, looking at capacity, how we best service our communities for the next 5 years, and then plans for the next 20 years. So this process will include regular interaction and communication with municipal staff, as well as touch points with council and the public. So we'll want to make sure that staff will be updated regularly and will be actively involved in the process. But we will most definitely want to keep council up to date and answer questions as we move forward. And then we will also hold public meetings so the public can both be informed and provide feedback as well. So in this case, Stantec is being recommended because of their significant experience in undertaking master servicing plans and their long experience with Middlesex Center. They've conducted many municipal servicing designs, and they have extensive knowledge of the municipality's existing infrastructure, the opportunities and the constraints we face. They have staff that have a long period of experience with Middlesex Center as well. For these reasons, we think it's going to be most cost efficient and time efficient to award to Stantec and to start the process of the master servicing plan as quickly as possible. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you for that report, Rob. I'll look to council then for questions. Deputy Mayor Brennan.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Rob. Rob, the EA we just did in Arba, will that roll in into this and it won't have to be all redone. Well, it'll be current. And it can just roll into this plan, can it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So through Madam Mayor to Deputy Mayor. So the intent is that that project will close out. It will be incomplete, but it'll essentially be closed out and be rolled into this as we look at. And to be clear, I don't think it was clear in this report, but this is not to look at just ARVA. This master servicing plan is looking at the servicing across the municipality. I mean, the focus is going to be in our larger settlement areas, but any urban center or community where we have servicing, that's the focus of this study. So ARVA will be included in that, but with the current OPR without an expansion to the settlement boundaries in ARVA, that potentially changes the proposed recommendation. So this will circle back, look at what's proposed or recommended for ARVA as an approach forward. The fact that that EA, the wastewater EA, looking at potential facility in ARVA was not completed, and that it's essentially rolled into this now, doesn't mean that at some point down the road, if there is an expansion in ARVA at some point, that and a wastewater facility was required, then another EA would be required to look at that as a Class C. But that's something coming back and looking at this at a higher level as municipal wide as opposed to just ARVA focused. So I guess in short, yes, it will be rolled in. It will be different than what it was intended to be, but it will be rolled into this.
Okay, I have Councillor Heffernan, and then I see Councillor Scott has questions as well.
To Mayor DeVito, to Rob, you mentioned field work, an allowance for the field work. Is that in addition to whatever they would normally do out and about throughout the municipality?
Yes. So through the mayor to Councillor Heffernan, that field work is more specific if we get into looking at the waterways to know what their availability is for sewage disposal, or something specific that we typically wouldn't take on until we get into a more detailed plan. But if we want to be in a position where we want to try to advance some of those projects quicker, we may have an opportunity to start field work earlier. The issue is some field work requires minimum of 4 season review. So you're looking at an extensive amount of time to complete the field work. So the sooner it can be started, the better. But so we just want to have that flexibility in there if there's an advantage to do so.
Councillor Scott?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Rob. So Rob, this is basically looking at the whole Middlesex Center. I'm assuming Delaware is going to be a big scope of that project too. When it's all done, this plan, is it looking at the expansion of the wastewater plant? So is it going to give us some ideas here? This is what we've got now, and in order to finish all this stuff, this is what we're going to need over there. But it's not going to do any details as far as the expansion goes, correct?
Yeah, through Madam Mayor to Councillor Scott, that's correct. So this will look at potential servicing options for Delaware, maybe potential pumping station locations, alignments of force main, gravity sewers. Look at the need for an expansion of the Kamoka facility, but it won't get into the details. It might recommend an expansion of this quantity in this number of years. Then, because of the schedule that would be required for the expansion of the facility itself, we would have to go back and undertake a specific Schedule CEA for that facility.
Okay. One more thing too, Rob. So I noticed in your report, you mentioned that they will be obviously working with interested developers, I guess, and also suggestions of what might work as far as paths that they take. That all comes into consideration with the transportation and stuff, I understand.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Oh, sorry, Councillor Cates, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Rob. So I'm just curious if you can clarify for me. So you've said that this is mostly water and wastewater. I thought in previous things that came to council, I thought that we needed to have a stormwater study. So can you just clarify for me on that, please?
So through the mayor to Councillor Cates, I think you may be thinking of specific proposals that are brought forward, site plans or subdivisions, where yes, a stormwater component would be a requirement of those approvals. This is looking at a higher level, right? Looking at the general servicing requirements for the municipality as a whole, not specific sites. And we do have two recent stormwater master plans for stormwater. We have the community stormwater master plan that was completed, as well as the Delaware stormwater master plan. So there's already a good basis there on the stormwater side. And this will be used, through this process, the master plan, they can fill in gaps where needed, but the master planning process doesn't get down to the specific detail at site level.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. And I think my other one, which you really answered, was what Brad asked about for the, I was going to ask that too, about this will be a part of our plans for Delaware. So thank you.
Yes.
Okay, if there are no other hands, I don't see any. We have a motion before us, and it is that report PWE 33/2022 regarding the Master Servicing Plan Consultant Award be received, and that the Master Servicing Plan be awarded to Stantec in the amount of $452,767.82, and excluding HST. And further, that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the necessary contract documents. I have a mover, please, and a second. Councillor Cates, Councillor Heffernan, any opposed? I don't see any hands. That is carried. Thank you for that report, Rob.
Thank you.
And, we have no notices of motion, but we have a number of correspondence items. Is there anything here that anyone wants to comment on or speak to? Councillor Heffernan, please.
To the Mayor, I just wanted to comment on item 6, the standard of care for dogs. I think this is probably a good addition to the bylaws we currently have. Currently, I think with dogs, other than biting or anything, it's basically our bylaws about excessive barking. Anyway, this revolves around the situation we have in Elderton. So I think this might help out a lot.
Thank you, Councillor Heffernan. Anyone else? Okay, the motion before us is that the correspondence items numbered 9.1 through 9.7 listed on the August 3rd, 2022 agenda be received as information. Could I have a mover, please? Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Heffernan. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. And we don't have a county council update this time. There is no other business. So we can move to bylaws. The motion before us is that bylaw 2021-076 and bylaws 2022 number 78 through 83 be adopted as printed. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Shipley and Councillor Arts. Any opposed? Sorry, this is all in favor. No one's opposed, and that is carried. So we also need to have adjournment motion that Council for the Municipality of Middlesex Centre adjourns the August 3rd, 2022 council meeting at 10:43. And I saw your hand, Councillor Scott, before. Deputy Mayor Brennan, thank you. Anyone opposed?